Hey, it's Drew from GameChurch.com. I'm here with Jake Elliott. He is with Cardboard Computer, who has made Kentucky Route Zero, and made some announcements lately. Act 5's coming out next year, and going to be coming out on the consoles, on Switch, PS4, and Xbox One.
Right.
So frame Kentucky Route Zero for people who maybe don't know much about it.
Yeah. So it's, let's see, we call the game a magical realist adventure game.
Yeah.
It's a sort of story-driven game that's set in the real world in Kentucky, and it's about a group of people who get lost on a secret highway that runs through Mammoth Cave. It's the largest cave system in the world that's in Kentucky.
Yeah. Where you live?
Yeah, where I live. Yeah, actually I live pretty close to Mammoth Cave.
Okay. Yeah.
And so during this journey, they encounter a lot of different people that are living in the caves or above ground in Kentucky in the real world, and get to meet a lot of people and learn about how they're surviving or not surviving or eking out an existence in the modern world.
Yeah, that's cool. And we talked about this before, but there's an element of economic disparity and debt that you're dealing with.
Right.
Why was that important to you, and how do you kind of address those subjects in the game?
Yeah, so it's important to us to reflect the real world. It's the realist part of magical realism. And specifically, this game's set in America, and we're looking at kind of in a historical view of America, how debt and income disparity and wealth inequality have been kind of a core part of the American experience for the history of the country. So the game is set in a kind of a non-time that sort of mixes signifiers from the Great Depression in the 1930s and the oil crisis in the 70s and the real estate financial crisis in 2008 and modern day, in order to kind of explore what American life has been like, and how how debt and the way people are imprisoned by debt and controlled by debt how that's woven into all of American
how that's
history.
affected their lives.
Yeah.
And I'm curious too, there's a lot of games you could have made. As an artistic person, as a designer, there's a lot of games you could have made. Why this one? What was made you say that we have to make this game?
I think like I mentioned, it's large. It is a reflection of the world that we live in, and that's a sort of really important role that art can play, in my view, is to reflect the real world and help people think about the real world and process it. Sometimes process it rationally, sometimes think about the systems that are at play in the real world, but also sometimes process it emotionally or spiritually. There are sort of there are sort of interactions you can have with art that you can't get at rationally in other ways. We're all three of us, we're game designers, and this is kind of what we do. We work with software or electronic music and video art and stuff. When we sat down to make this game, sorry.
No, you're good.
That's
cool. What do you hope players gain from that experience?
I guess, like I mentioned, it can help them kind of process or understand the world a bit better.
Maybe understand their part in that system. I think we can see there's a danger of seeing systemic problems as bigger than us, and they are bigger than us, and that's important to recognize. But maybe find some hope in the midst of that.
Totally. There is a sense sometimes that these conditions that we live in are inevitable. And it's important to understand and bear in mind that this kind of oppressive relationships are not inevitable. Nothing is inevitable. And in fact, like I've mentioned, that we draw a lot on magical realist fiction, the Latin American literary movement, where a lot of that movement was about saying this is the real world and these are the conditions of the real world, and then this is this sort of fantastical life, the life of metaphor, and the spiritual life that is also part of how we experience the real world. And these folk tales and stuff seem fantastical, but in fact, there's some relationship with these they're neither of these conditions are really necessary or inevitable, or neither of them have to kind of play out in a specific way.
Yeah, you're not stuck where you are
right.
completely. You know.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that about Kentucky Route Zero is that despite the fact that it's dealing with some pretty serious subject matter, and the fact that it's about a part of our country that maybe isn't the most popular part of our country right now.
Okay, sure.
It's still very hopeful and very respectful of human beings. Is that something that drives you in your studio?
Absolutely, yeah. And in relation to this part of the country in the South, and even specifically in Appalachia, there's sometimes some misconceptions and myths and prejudices about what the people in that region are like, that they always act as a block, or that there's some kind of like uniform homogeneity about their values politically or morally or ethically, culturally. There is a history behind that prejudice, but it's also really not true that it's uniform like that. There's also a really important history of social justice activism and labor activism.
And that's in the game.
That's in the game, yeah. There's a lot in the game about this coal mining company, this energy company, that draws from some of the history of labor organization around resisting sort of brutal energy companies that have transformed this part of the country.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate your approach, because when I sort of get my personal convictions about people is they're always more complex than we think they are.
Right. And, absolutely.
We always see things, and I've noticed that as I've played Kentucky Route Zero, and I really appreciate that approach. But last question, and you kind of addressed this a little bit already, but we like to ask game designers, what drives you to do what you do?
Yeah.
Why do you make games?
Video games specifically. I like working with software, and I like working with digital technology. I mean, on the one, it's really compelling material to work with, but it's also this material and fabric that we always encounter in our everyday lives, that we're always interacting with real-time responsive interfaces, and so being able to use that sort of common material as an art-making material is really valuable.
Cool. Well, we can't wait to play Act 5. It'll be out sometime next year, and as well, it'll all be together in one package for the console version for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. So thanks so much, Jake.
Thanks.